What's up?
Doing well, man. Daryl Campbell.
How Hepburn?
Nice to meet you, man.
Nice meeting you.
So do they have this? Oh, okay.
Yeah, they got the seats laid out, questions laid out. Doing good?
I mean, I can't complain, man.
I hear that.
Can't complain.
Some additional stuff just in case I get off topic a little bit.
Yeah, man.
Which I expect.
You know, these mics on. Yeah, these larger panels, man.
Yeah.
It's a little tricky.
It is.
You know, everybody. You know, some people are longer-winded than others.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and, you know, you got only so much time before everybody's attention on particular issues.
Yeah.
So we'll
Yes, sir.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going excellent. How are you?
I'm good. How Hepburn?
I know you.
Okay.
You know me. Are you ready for this?
Yeah, I'm ready as I can be.
How long have you been in Broward?
This is probably, 2 weeks in now?
How you doing?
It's good. Just been, gathering information, putting the water on the fire hydrant. So
First week of school.
first week of school going great.
Man, you gotta come find us, man. You gotta come find us. You're gonna need some allies.
I know. Tell me about it.
It's like
Yes.
up close combat.
Yes. I've heard.
Okay.
I've heard. So we will connect.
It gets real
Yes,
close combat.
Yes, we will connect.
just waiting on the pastor.
Okay. So a dear friend of mine told me to tell you hello, Dr. Fanula.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
How's he doing?
He's doing good. He's doing awesome. He is doing awesome.
I'm not as bad as he might say I was. You know, one of my days on the school. And I was zero tolerance about it.
Yeah, because we were talking last night. I was telling him I was coming to this event and who was on the panel. He's like, I'll make sure you tell Dr. Osgood. I said, hello.
Oh, he knows Mr. Hudson. Oh, okay. All right, who's missing? The baby.
Waiting on
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and get started with our town hall meeting tonight. I'm going to ask you to first pull out your cell phone and go to Facebook and look for the page Senator Rosalind Osgood and like and share that page so that those that are not here can be a part of our town hall this evening. First, I'm going to invite the senior pastor of this church, Dr. Ezra Tillman, to come and greet us and give us a prayer. Dr. Tillman. Let's give him a hand. He's new to South Florida. Let's give him a South Florida welcome.
Thank you and welcome to the First Baptist Church, Piney Grove. We're grateful for this opportunity to serve in any capacity we can to our community. We are aware that the church is paramount in leading and using our platform to inform our congregation and community. We're grateful for the leadership of Senator Osgood, who thought it not robbery to include us into this conversation and understand the severity of this issue in our state. And as walking into this pastorate and into this time, I understand the importance of getting involved. And so I'm grateful for our panel as well. And I want to thank all of you for making sure that your presence tonight speak louder than words by coming to make sure we are educated and informed to make sure we can change the narrative of our history so that we don't repeat history again. So I want to thank you and welcome you. And because I'm a new guy and I know you know someone new, I want to ask for Pastor Green to come and to lead us in prayer. The pastor of Mount Hermon, give him a hand as he comes, because it's some preachers in the house, all right?
Thank you, Pastor Tillman. Let us come together in prayer. Our Father and our God, our help in the time of trouble. God, we ask that your presence be made manifest here tonight. God, bless every home represented, every heart that's in the house. Bless the hands of our elected officials, those who are looking out for the great amongst the least of these. God, we ask that you would just give us a vision to incite revolutionary principles that would help give a greater Fort Lauderdale to a new generation. And God, as we here in this place, let our hearts come in the spirit of unity. This is our prayer in the name of Jesus the Christ we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Let's give our pastors a hand. And if there are any other members of the clergy, would you please stand? I see Reverend Williams. Any other member of the clergy, please stand. Thank you all for being here tonight. So welcome to the Senate District 32 Education Town Hall. I'm going to start tonight with a few recognitions, and then we'll jump into introducing our panel and talk more about our time together tonight. So we have, to my right, your left, our fabulous public defender who's been in this work for over 4 or 5 decades. I actually remember Mr. Weeks when he used to have his dreads, but he has always been for our people and for our kids. So would you help me welcome Mr. Gordon Weeks? And you will hear from him later. A person who is like a sister to me, you most of the time see us together when I need somebody to fuss that's not gonna back down and use some other words that I can't use sometimes because I have to preach. I call her, and we're that way all across the state. The president of the Broward Fort Lauderdale branch of the NAACP, Ms. Marsha Ellison. Also have with me tonight your state representative for this district, Mr. Daryl Campbell. And new to Broward County, serving in the capacity as Deputy Superintendent of Teaching and Learning in Broward County Schools, Dr. Hepburn. And Dr. Jeff Holness, who is a District 5 school board member, had a conflict, so he will be joining us at some point. Also want to recognize school board member Sarah Leonardi, Ms. Leonardi. Former Lauderdale Lakes Commissioner, Ms. Beverly Williams. I see the Honorable Retired Judge, Alona Holmes. Are there any other elected officials that I don't have on the sheet? If you would stand and be recognized. I don't. Okay. State Representative Patricia Williams, thank you so much for being here. Oh my goodness, and I didn't see the one and only retired Judge Zebedee Wright. My brother from the other mother, former commissioner and state rep, Mr. Bobby DuBose. Commissioner Sharon Wright from Lauderdale Lakes. Anyone else? We also want to recognize our partners tonight, Faith in Florida and Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Will members of those two organizations please stand? Thank you. And before we get started, I'm going to ask all of those that work in the school system in any capacity if you would stand. And I'm going to ask the rest of us to give them a hand tonight. Thank you. Thank you for not leaving. Thank you for your dedication and what you do for our kids. You may be seated. So the purpose of tonight's town hall meeting is for us to have a community discussion about the new revised African American standards, to talk about some recent data about our children being arrested in schools, and to see how we can come together as a community to support our school district and ensure that all students receive quality education with accurate curriculum. I wanted to do this town hall because transitioning from the school board, what normally happens is the state legislature does a lot of policies and put a lot of laws in place, and then the school district is left to implement those things because they have to follow the law. And then what you all do a lot of times is you come and yell at the school board and the principals and the people in the schools, but it's nothing they can really do about the decisions that the state made. So I want us to work and ask our questions from a perspective of us working together. Can I get an agreement by the clap of your hands that our children are important to all of us? So we're going to go through a few questions. We're going to open up the floor for you to ask questions and make comments. Then we're going to talk about this critical voting season that we're transitioning into. And we're going to work together as a community tonight. So this is the time for us to prioritize our children, to get clarity, to share information, and we're going to move forward in that way. First, I want to start the panel off tonight talking about something that is critically important that we don't oftentimes talk about in the African American community, and that's mental health. Representative Daryl Campbell is a licensed therapist. So Representative Campbell, what are two things that you would advise our parents to do to help our students maintain their mental wellness throughout the school year?
Thank you for that, Senator. First off, I just want to say thank you for everybody being out here tonight. You know, as an elected official, it's quite fun and good to see that so many people are so invested in this type of conversation. And so with me being a therapist and working on how do we engage and make sure that our children are well mentally, what I typically suggest to parents is you have a dialogue with your children. You engage in them. One of the things that I always recall back to the time when I was growing up is how invested my parents were in my schooling. Every day that I came home from school, they would ask me, "How was your day?" And I would give an answer, say, "It was good." And my mom, being who she is, good is not good enough. And so she wanted to know details as far as, okay, what did you do in school? What does good even mean? And so having a dialogue on that level as far as what is going on with them in school helps your children to recognize what's going on with them internally. It helps them really begin to process, how do I recognize the things that I'm good at, the things I'm struggling in that I need to improve on, and what can I do to get better at that? And that allows that dialogue for you. And so doing that on a day-in, day basis helps with that. I also tell parents, when you are engaging with your child, you want to be engaging from a point of empowerment. You don't want to do the heavy lifting. Your job as a parent is already heavy as it is, but for them, they need to see themselves being able to feel empowered. So when there is something that they are struggling with or something that they like, they should be able to figure out, or you should be able to guide them in a way, in a manner that allows for them to really dig deeper into that interest, or figure out or strategize, what do I need to do to figure out how to get better at that? And the last thing I would say is ensuring that you're also talking with your teachers. We know that the climate with the school system right now, when we talk about it, it's very hot. And so with you being engaged with their teachers, their guidance counselors, their principal, being part of the PTA, being invested into the school and helping and supporting that helps with your child mentally and doing well in school, and they become invested because now they get to see implementation of how that looks from an adult standpoint.
Thank you, Representative Campbell. And it's very important when we look at the increase in child suicide and the things that are happening with our children. A lot of them are really stressed out, and I know we like to think that they're too young to be stressed out, but when you're overwhelming about them making straight A's, and we want them to do their best, but sometimes as parents, we can be just overbearing, and it puts a lot of pressure on our children, especially those children that are athletes, because they're managing sports, they're managing a whole nother level of peer pressure, and they're juggling all the many things that they're juggling. So we want to be sensitive to that. So next we're gonna move, and we're gonna jump right into this. So we had this information come out over the last couple of weeks that have literally been mind-blowing for me. I never thought I would be living in a time in a state where the Department of Education would revise the African American history standards and have information in there that suggests that black people benefited from slavery, that slavery increased by natural reproduction when we know that women were forced to breed kids, and even laws were passed that if kids were born to slave women, they were slaves, because we knew that the fathers of those kids were probably the slave owners. Information that suggests that during the different massacres that were started by white mobs, that black people were the ones that perpetuated the violence upon themselves. Representative Campbell, I thought about calling you a few times, but I just increased my prayer life because I was about to lose my mind just trying to figure out how someone could be so egregious and so insulting, lying on our ancestors in this way. So we know that during the 2022, I think, legislative session, HB 7 was passed. And this bill says that you can't teach something that makes someone feel uncomfortable for something that's happened in the past that they didn't have anything to do with and cause psychological anguish. So from that, we've heard a lot about book bans, we've heard a lot about parents' rights, and being that we are in America, when we have legislation, it applies to all of us. It's not just legislation for people that are white people. It applies to all of us. So tonight, I thought it would be very important to hear from Dr. Hepburn in the school district about the different processes, because I'm sure some of you are just like I was. I'm still uncomfortable when I was taught in school that George Washington chopped down the cherry tree and never told a lie. But I don't know the process if I want to appeal that book and take it off the shelf of how to do that. So Dr. Hepburn, could you tell us first the process for challenging books. If any members of this community wanted to challenge a book, like a book that doesn't tell you that Rosa Parks is really a black woman, and they wanted to challenge that book, what would be the process and how does that process work? And if you would start by just telling us a little bit about yourself.
Yes,
You're
yes,
new
yes.
to the community, so we do want to get to know you.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Dr. Howard Hepburn, fresh face in Broward County Public Schools, about 2 weeks on the job, so I've been drinking. Yes, been drinking water out of fire hydrant, so just been absorbing information, listening and learning, getting to know everybody and understanding the amount of great talent that we have in Broward County Public Schools and the amazing students that we serve in our school district. Just a little bit short version of my leadership journey. Actually born and raised in Belglade, Florida. Yep, the mug. Indeed. We'll see if y'all cheer when we come down here and play a little football against y'all. So, born and raised in Belglade, Florida. And for those that understand that community, a lot of greatness have come out of that community. Amongst all the other issues, people are resilient, just like the folks here in Broward County, going through many things, poverty, difficulties with families, and still finding a way to persevere through all of that, to get where we want to go, to make sure our kids have certain opportunities. And there was great people along the way that ensured that I had some great opportunities. That's why I'm standing here in front of you today. It takes a village. It takes a village, and many of you understand that. Many of you have parents that work long hours that couldn't be there for you, so you had to depend on your next door neighbor. You had to depend on your auntie. You had to depend on your grandma. So, it takes that village to make sure that we can get to where we need to go. So like I said, somebody saw something in me, especially in high school. I talked to somebody who had the same principal that I had. I always have to give her a shout out, Dr. F.C. Greer, who saw some potential in all of us as students. And because of that, she ensured that we were in the right classes, that we had the right opportunities, that we had the right mannerism. We knew how to address our needs and advocate for our needs to get where we want to be, and to pay that forward when the opportunity came. So I'm continuing to pay that forward throughout my whole entire life. And I had the opportunity to have an academic scholarship to UCF, where I met my beautiful wife, Sheba, who we have 2 lovely daughters together. So I'm a girl dad, and wide spectrum, 6-year-old to 16-year-old. So I don't know what we were thinking after the first one. And middle school principal, high school principal, all the things in between, coaching, dean, teacher, all those things along that journey, and just dedicated my life to education, dedicated my life for the betterment of students in their communities. I'm a firm believer that a community is a direct reflection of the opportunities that are offered in their schools, good or bad, right? So if we're going to, good or bad, if we're going to improve our communities, we have to improve our schools. We have to ensure that they have the opportunities to change their trajectory and their family's trajectory, which in turn changes their community trajectory. So I am knee-deep in this work. It's a lifelong love and a lifelong struggle for me to make sure that I'm communicating, I'm accessible, I'm collaborating to make sure for the betterment of our kids, because they are our future. Right, we have to depend on them. And so what we do in our classrooms, what we do in our school buildings is going to directly affect our communities. So have this opportunity to come here to work under Dr. Licata, who we share a lot in common. We have the same goals, we have the same visions, and that's important for me. I can't work for somebody who doesn't share that level of equity and excellence that's needed in our communities and in our schools. So we're trying to drive this work forward. We're trying to make sure that everybody's aligned for the same goals. We're trying to make sure that we're out and about in our communities and making sure we're understanding our needs. Broward County is a huge community, lots of people, and so there's going to be a lot of listening and learning to learn what we need to do to address our community needs and address our student needs. So thanks for having me. But let me dive right into the question that you asked. So, and like Senator said, this isn't a new issue of challenging. She mentioned something. She's seen books over the years. My wife has seen books over the years, and essays over the years or whatever material over the years come to our house, and she's challenged them. I tell principals and teachers all the time, you don't have to worry about me, it's my wife you got to worry about. Because she's going to go through it with a fine-tooth comb, and she's going to challenge something that she just doesn't think is appropriate for our kids or is misinformation for the kids in our house. I think right now we formalize that process, right, through legislation requiring it, through the parental rights laws, and so the process that's been formalized and being implemented in many school districts, including our own, is very simple. So if you see something that your kid is bringing home that you're concerned about, you go directly to your principal. And your principal has a specific process that they're going to follow. Specifically for the school level, they're going to create a committee, internal and external stakeholders, to review that material, review that book, and then there's going to be one of 3 decisions that's going to be made. Is it appropriate for that grade level? If not, it will be moved to a different grade level to make sure it's in front of the appropriate age group or grade level of students. Number 2, they may deem it is appropriate for that grade level, appropriate for that subject, and it stays. Number 3, they may find out, hey, this isn't appropriate at all for this school level, for elementary school, if it's for elementary school, or for high school or middle school, whatever the case may be. And in that case, it may get pulled, and then that'll trigger another process for us to look at something district-wide. If the parent is not satisfied with the outcome of that process for that material or that book, then they can appeal that decision with the superintendent, and then that will spark a more intense review with the district, where the superintendent will assign committee members, internal and external, and then make a decision on that book and the outcome, which would be one of the 3. So that's the formalized process as it is right now for parents, constituents that may not have kids in our schools also. They can start at that district level if they see something that they feel is inappropriate and should not be in front of our kids. So we welcome that. Challenging us, advocacy, all those things just continue to make us better, right? So we welcome parents, constituents, pushing on us, providing feedback to make sure we're doing what's right for our kids.
Thank you. The next question, Dr. Hepburn, is I've been on various radio shows, different platforms, and I've had teachers involved, and some teachers are really feeling that they're being forced beyond what their ethical obligation is to teach information that's not accurate, that's not appropriate, or that's erroneous, that's lies. Let me just say it like I need to say it. So what is the district's process for ensuring, and I'm focusing on African American history, the history of Black people, because that's the issue. I care about the history of all people, but the issue that we're having right now, the revised standard, was the African American history curriculum. So I just want to be clear, because somebody recently said to me, well, you don't care about other people. I do. But right now, the issue we have on the table is African American history. And being that it's one area that I'm an expert in because I've been Black all my life, I definitely have to lift up this issue. So how do we go forward ensuring that African American history is taught to all students, because it's not just Black students that take African American history course, and that it's factual when it's taught?
Okay, so definitely. So number one, what I want to address is that African American history is infused in a lot of literature in many of our classrooms, right? The stories that we always hear about, the mainstream stories are definitely weaved into many of the books in ELA, in science, and in social studies. But specifically, if a teacher is teaching an African American history course and they think they see something inappropriate or that's not factual, they can also follow a similar process. First of all, we want to make sure that they go straight to their principal, right? We have a robust academic department that goes through the curriculum, that creates what we call a scope and sequence, which is pretty much a pacing guide to let teachers know what they should teach at what time of the year, and making sure that the curriculum is appropriate and not infusing erroneous or controversial issues, especially the new things that have been coming out in the news and whatnot that the state has embedded in our current curriculum. So those things won't be taught. And if a teacher is faced with something or reviews something, say, hey, I think this is inappropriate, I think this is not factual, they will go to their principal first, right? We don't want them to be out on their own trying to make a decision. We want to make sure that they utilizes the resources that are available to them every day. And number one, that's the principal. And even if the principal does not have the information that they think to guide that teacher, the next step is to let leaders at the central office know, because we have a robust department that can go through all of that information, guide them in the right direction. If we made a mistake, we will correct it. Right, we will adjust the curriculum and the information accordingly. But we don't want teachers out there on the island by themselves. We want to make sure that we protect our teachers. We want to make sure that they have readily available access to the right information and the right people and those right resources, which is number one, starts with their principal, and then it goes up the ladder from there. Because we also want to make sure our school leaders are comfortable with the right information. So we're always accessible. We have a robust department that'll go through all that information to guide them through all of that, just to make sure everything is accurate that's being taught in the classroom.
So my final question, Dr. Hepburn, at this point, this district uses a lot of vendors, and I've been contacted with some information, as I mentioned earlier, about one vendor who was writing, and it wasn't in Broward County District, but this vendor had a story about Rosa Parks. And first, it was told to them to make her lighter. Now, if y'all know Rosa Parks, y'all know she already a light-skinned chick. And after the book was revised, they were asked, not by the district, we can't find out who actually asked them. We're gonna deal with that on the state level. I'm a part of the K through 12 Education Committee. They were told to take out that Rosa Parks was a black woman. So when we're procuring books and curriculums and materials, what is our process of investigating, and how are we documenting? For example, if we've used a book or curriculum for the last 4 or 5 years, and now that book or curriculum is missing, certain important facts, what is the process for documenting that?
So I'm gonna, first I'm gonna talk about textbook adoption. So we go through textbook adoption, meaning the new textbook that are gonna be used for a possibly upcoming school year or two. And so that's a robust process also, where we include, a committee is developed that includes internal and external stakeholders to go through that information, to go through all what's within that textbook, how it supports the curriculum, how it supports the information, how it sticks to the standards that we're trying to teach. And so we have people, just like yourselves on the outside, that are supporting that decision making, and then that'll go to our board, and then we'll make a final adoption and start ordering materials. But I know in the past there's been certain situations. I'm new to Broward, so I can't speak to if the situations happen in Broward, but in previous school districts that I've worked in, where there is information missing out of a text that we've adopted, and we have certain standards that we need to teach, we will supplement that text with something else to close that gap, to address that gap that we've identified that text is not addressing. So that's the most common way of us doing that, is finding supplemental instructional material that we can fill that gap to make sure we're addressing the needs within the standard.
So what I'm hearing you say, our teachers and our principals should not be afraid to teach factual Black history in Broward County Schools.
They should not be afraid. Like I said, we have a very large and robust academic department. That's their sole purpose, diving into text, diving into curriculum, making sure we have a good pacing of what should be taught, when it should be taught, being a resource to our teachers, being a resource to our school leaders, so that nobody's left out on the island to try and make these decisions by themselves. It is a team. And that's one of my focus, to make sure everybody understands we're making these decisions as a team, because if you work in isolation, that's when mistakes are made, that's when misinformation is given out. And so that team, thank you.
That's a good place to clap.
Yep. And that team involves parents and constituents. Because if you're like my wife, you're calling that school, you're emailing that principal or that assistant principal, asking questions and pushing back. You may not have somebody like me where she says, "You read this email that I'm about to send to our child's principal," but send it anyway. It's feedback. Feedback helps us get better quicker. If we don't get feedback, it's a slow roll in how we're going to address things. So if we don't know about something, it's going to take us a while to find out sometimes on our own. So providing feedback, pushing in, providing input helps us get quicker, better to address our kids' needs.
Thank you, Dr. Hepburn, and welcome to Broward County.
Thank you.
So we're going to move now to talk about another critical topic. As we recall, and it's not something that we're proud about in Broward County, at one point, prior to Mr. Runcie coming, Broward County Public Schools was arresting more kids in school than any other district in the state of Florida. So our NAACP president is going to come now and explain to us how the school district's discipline matrix impacts our students, and explain to us what civil citation is. Ms. Ellison.
Thank you, Doc. First, let me just ask the members of our NAACP Fort Lauderdale Broward Executive Committee, if you will please stand. All of our executive committee, this is our governing body. They're spread out. Thank you. So, in Broward County, and it ain't been that long ago, that this district was suspending, expelling, and arresting more children than any other district in any of the 67 counties. That's bad. And what ended up, when we looked at the numbers, the children who were being suspended at 3.5 times higher than any other group was black children. Black boys, black girls, and then on to Latino boys and Latino girls. When you drill down and you really looked at what was going on, it wasn't guns, it wasn't felonies, it was a child could run in the hallway, a kid would yell in the hallway, a kid might be not the aggressor but the victim in a fight, and both kids get arrested. Now this was happening on the east side, but it wasn't happening out west. It was babies, 7, 8, 9, and up. Black male graduation rate down, because if you're not in school, you're away from your classroom. You're not getting your work as your teacher has outlined into the work plan. You're going out to an alternative school. The district likes to call it alternative to external suspension. Now, that sounds real good, might be, but what that means is children, black children, were being removed from their classroom and taken to some of the other schools, Lanier James or something along those lines. We're not talking felonies. We're not talking violent crimes. We're not talking about guns, any of those things. And they were being housed in these alternative schools, meaning there is no mechanism, and as of today, they've never shown me a mechanism to get those children's work, their real work, to them prior to them continuing on outside of the district, which means they were being housed and given busy work. And so you don't come back into your classroom after missing 10 days or such, and then just pick up where you left off. There are studies that show the longer the kids are out of school, the less likely they're going to be successful. So my thing was, if you've seen the population of black kids, but do you always have to have one answer for our children? Is always handcuffs with our children? And we don't have, as our neighbors to the south and our neighbors to the north, our own police force. So we have all these different police departments. And it depends whether the child was arrested, suspended, expelled, depends on the school who turned the discipline of our children over to law enforcement and the officer that showed up. So hence came the Promise program. But Promise did more than stop the arrest. A lot of the children have stuff. Representative Campbell talked about kids got stuff. It could be our kids just, if you have a conversation with young people, it could be a lot of stuff. I might be having financial problems. I could be struggling in other ways. A lot of those children are special needs children. A lot of those children, when they took the time, they found that a parent was deceased or gravely ill or something was going on. But those kids, our kids, never got the benefit of the doubt. Prior to Runcie, in comes Runcie, we look at the data, and then we developed and sent some programs, some resources. The teachers weren't interested in sending these children to jail. What they wanted them to get whatever assistance they needed, so when they came back, and many of them did, they would be able to work and continue the work that they have in their classroom. They were not aware in many cases that these arrests stay with them forever. So if you want to go to the military, if you want to go and come back and work for the district, and the first thing you do, fingerprint, you're going to find that these children have been scarred forever. So hence comes Promise. Fast forward to today. Now there's been Promise grow, it changed, it worked. Fast forward to today. This current board has, based on information that we've been told, now wants to eliminate Promise and turn the clock back to where we were, when we were the worst in the state, suspending, expelling, and arresting. And a lot of times it was for the same incident. One incident, your child's life is ruined, and you've got to advocate and figure out, you have to contact Mr. Weeks' office and figure out what we can do. But the issue was still there. The mom was still deceased. The dad is still ill. They may be homeless. You don't know, because people didn't take a time to, in many cases. But out west, if you talk to some of the teachers and school leaders, they'll tell you they got all the stuff. They got drugs, they got all the stuff. But what they have is their own built-in Promise program, their own built-in civil citation, which is a pre-arrest, meaning they're called their parents. They don't call us to say something's going on with little Johnny. So the NAACP we've never advocated for other alternatives to public education before. We believe in the Constitution that children are entitled to a high-quality public education. And that means black and brown children too. That means that we ought to be providing help, adding resources, and not taking away. And on August, I believe the 29th, the district will move to remove Promise. And don't be fooled by that alternative to external suspension. That is where they remove your child from his or her home school, their classroom, send them out to this other location, then the busy work they do has nothing to do with their classroom. That will take us back to where we were prior to Runcie being there. Now, the last time we spoke, the Public Defender's Office was there because this came up in June. The state attorney himself was there to say, we don't have resources down here. Don't start arresting these children to send them to my office. Ain't nothing I could do with them. We're asking you to handle the district, to take care of the district, the discipline of the children within the district. Don't give them to the police and don't send them to my office. The state attorney has said that. There are no resources there. The child is there. Now, it may not be fair, but sometimes the district, Mr. Hepburn, Dr. Hepburn, is all that we have. And so you're in that space. We need folk to be able to hear and understand the cries of our children and not let handcuffs be the only opportunity that they have to get help, and many times they don't, because that's not help. And so we want to not return. We have no intention of returning, and I know you just got here yesterday, Doc, to returning to the same way where black children are punished and disciplined more harshly than their counterparts. I didn't make it up, check the data. Now, over the years, the numbers have crept up, and I understand that it's tied to civil citation, but that is the district's policy. That is not statute. My general counsel, Judge Holmes, is ready and willing to meet with your general counsel, and I understand the district has canceled all Promise meetings, which leads me to believe that they are headed back to where we were when they got one answer for black children, particularly black boys. Runzie comes in, bring in resources, and the black children, all graduation rates went up to include black children, who I think all of us would agree that all children are equally important. And so we need y'all to show up, because if you ever knew a child, see a child, heard of a child, they need your help. We do not need to return back to where we were 20 years ago, 10 years ago, to making sure that our children are not successful. And this is where, when the vote goes down, if they move to remove promise, there's nothing else. Don't believe the hype about we got resources. There aren't resources out at Lanier James for children. These are not children who were bad children. It could be something very simple. You all heard the story about the kid who threw the M&M and was arrested for a felony of charge of discharging a missile. That's real. Gets to court, and the judge says, you're charging with a felony? Was it plain a peanut? What do y'all got this child in here for? Unfortunately, those things are real when it comes to our children, to our babies even. The reason we have a disciplinary matrix is because children on the east side were being punished more harshly for the same incident that was being committed by the children on the west. And so the matrix was supposed to bring that in line. Is better, but it ain't good. And now the matrix has moved back to where everything is punitive. Everything is punish, push out. Taking tools away from the teachers and the school leaders and putting it back in the hands of law enforcement. And so Doc, we got a problem. This is an emergency when it comes to Broward County schools and our children.
Thank you, Ms. Ellison. And she talked about the next meeting, so we need as a community to have a presence, because this is ultimately a school board decision. So she's going to give you the information, and we know that there's an agenda, and the item could be anywhere on the agenda. So it's something where there needs to be a strategy where we show up, and if you have to leave, somebody else come. We have a board that with a lot of people that many of us didn't vote for on the board, but it does not mean that our voices are going to be silenced, and our love for our kids is not going to be shown, because we have to deal with these issues. And it's not about whether you like somebody. When I was on the board, many of y'all got me straight. You had opposition. You showed up. And when it comes to our kids, we have to continue to do that. We don't want to go backwards. Now, we're going to shift to Mr. Weeks, because we're going to talk about some recent data that we received that gives you the facts about what's happening with school-based arrests, in particular police departments. Mr. Weeks, Attorney Weeks.
Thank you, Senator Dr. Osgood. You know, it's good to have these conversations in this House, because we have to be honest with ourselves, honest with our community, honest with our hearts, and honest with our Maker. The reality is Broward County is moving in the wrong direction when it comes to how we're going to address our children in schools, when it comes to their discipline. You know, a lot of folks say, well, why are you spending so much time on discipline? This is an educational issue. Well, let's look at history. History tells us that they weaponized the criminal justice system back in the 80s, and they used that to destroy a whole segment of black communities all across this country. Gave folks more time in prison, didn't give them the right representation, the right opportunities. And what did that do to our communities? We are still trying to resolve ourselves from the history of the 80s, the war on drugs, which was the war on black and brown communities all across this country. To get folks out of society so they cannot be productive and they cannot participate, so they cannot offer anything. That is the history that we see taking place, again, with schools and education all across the nation. That same approach of weaponizing the criminal justice system is now being used to weaponize education. Weaponize it. Where have we seen this before? When we were during a pandemic, a worldwide pandemic, they weaponized science and they cause folks to split amongst each other because they wouldn't follow simple science. I'm waiting for them to try to weaponize math because math is the universal language of the universe. But they realize that they can weaponize history and education and make sure our children are moved out of that system, and then we'll have the same impact that we had when our communities were destroyed. Because if we don't have our children becoming productive, entering into society, taking on where we left off, and building from that, our communities are going to be stagnant. This is a grand plan, and the data is very clear. Madam President talked about the leading of the state in arrests, suspension, and expulsions. That is real. That is facts. Promise came around. Took a lot of energy and a lot of work and resources in the school district to recognize that you had to put some energy around supporting children that were having behavioral issues. And I dare ask anyone in this room to say that they didn't have a behavior issue when they were a child. So we all recognize that we were able to overcome through maturation and maturity and grow into the people and the leaders and the goodwill people that we become. Why can't we do that for our children? Why can't we give them an opportunity to fall down, make a mistake, and get themselves back up and get back in the game? But we are using this system. The data is showing us right after COVID, we knew that children had been home for a while and they were going to have difficulty re-socializing because they haven't been around children for a while. So we knew there was going to be some uptick after COVID. So we throw that data out. But when you even throw that data out, you see the numbers are starting to move in the wrong direction because the anthem that is going around in this state, in this country, is that we want to just bury ourselves and not be knowledgeable. We don't want to be conscious. We don't want to know things. We don't want to be woke. We want to pretend that things are a certain way. We want to remake history. We don't believe in truth. We don't believe in fact. And it's difficult for me as an attorney because that's what we live and die by in a court of law, is the truth and the fact of the matter. But we see this data. We see the data very clearly. There's some communities, Coconut Creek, and I don't like to say names, but I'm going to say it, that do certain things. And you ask yourself, why won't you embrace giving a child an opportunity? And I'm going to tell you, there are communities that are gated all throughout Broward County. And those gated communities that have schools that were probably built by the developer that built those gated communities. When those children go to those schools, there's the same fighting, there's the same disrespect, there's the same, smoking that stuff. There's the same things that go on in schools that are predominantly of color. But they have a different method to deal with that problem. They pick up the phone, they talk to the parents, they call in the principal, they have little counseling. But in our community, it's handcuffs and rides in the back of the car down to the jack. And we have to become forceful in our demands that our children be treated the same as every other child in this community. No more can we just allow this pattern that they are trying to move. There's a momentum that they're trying to generate. We see it. We see it. Y'all watched the debates last night. I had to watch. I was curious. And we see what they're doing. We see the messages that they're sending. They dumb down everything into very small sound bites because facts aren't important. It's about culture wars. It's about emotional, moving people. And we are sitting here quiet. We got to stop being quiet. I applaud y'all for coming out tonight. I applaud our pastor for allowing us to be in this space. Thank you, Dr. Osgood, for bringing us together. But each and every one of you are ambassadors. Each and every one of you are warriors. Each and every one of you need to be fighting for all of our children in this community. Because we can't do this forever. We have to make sure we bring up that next generation that knows the struggles that we went through, and our forefathers been through, and our ancestors been through, so they'll know the importance of pushing forward and becoming better. We have to do that. So, Doctor, I know you're new to the community, and sometimes I forget. When you're new to the community, you're new to the job, you oftentimes want to get your sea legs. You want to, make sure you got everything under control before you make, big decisions. We need you to be bold here in Broward County. We need you to be able to stand up here in Broward County, because the pressure that is coming from all up in the northern part of this state ain't going to go away. We know why they keep looking down here at Broward County. We got something special here, very special. And they know if it is successful and it replicates, it will wake a wave all across this country. They don't want that to happen. So we gotta be bold. We gotta stand up. We gotta fight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weeks, for those comments. And I'm going to ask the media team to put this QR code on the screen. As we continue to have this discussion, we're going to open up the floor. As we've been talking about all of these things that are going on, we have to understand what's happening with public policy. We are being forced not to talk about white supremacy and racism. And when I'm using those terms, I'm not using them to talk about an individual. I'm using them to talk about systems that are in place, structural systems that are in place that promotes this ideology that some are superior and supreme and others are not, so they are treated differently. And when you go home, we have this big push now for civic education. And you look at the 13th Amendment, it's a clause in there that talks about criminalization. So if we can criminalize education, criminalize healthcare, criminalize drug addiction, then we can treat people differently because the rules no longer apply to them because they are criminals. We can't make it a crime to be black. We can't go back to legalizing slavery, but we can criminalize certain individuals, disrupt their communities. Many of our kids have their mothers and fathers in jail simply because they have a drug addiction. Crack was criminalized, cocaine was criminalized. Now we got opioids and we're treating it like a health crisis because it's impacting a different population. And it's very important, it's very important that we understand what takes place with public policy. And it is why it's imperative that you show up and you vote, however you are led to vote. In January, all of us were kicked off the vote by mail ballot. Everybody, for no reason, it was no problem. So if you have not re-requested your vote by mail ballot, we're going to put a QR code up on the screen and give you the opportunity to do that tonight if you have not done it. If you're not a registered voter, we have the NAACP here, we have Faith in Florida. We are suffering a consequence right now because some people selectively vote. Our children's lives are on the line. Our future of our democracy is on the line. We cannot give excuse if you think your vote does not count. When you don't vote, that counts and it hurts just like we're hurting right now. So you can point your phone toward that QR code. We need to make sure that we're accountable, and we need to pay more attention to the policies, because once these laws are put in place, all of the institutions of government have to do what? Follow the law. But we have to continue to show up and vote and put people in office that we can change the law and we can get a different result. And that's very, very, very important. We're not going to agree on every issue. But when it comes to our kids, I believe that every single one of us want a safe, healthy school environment, and we appreciate the people that work in the school system and spend the countless hours trying to make it happen. Before we open up the floor, School Board Member Dr. Holness just joined us, and I wanted him to talk a little bit tonight as we're looking at coming out of COVID and certain things going on in the district. I know that we now have a couple of F schools in District 5, and it is my philosophy, community, that these are all our kids in all of our schools. The district cannot change schools and make an impact in the students' lives without us. Many times we neglect our responsibility and we only shift it to those persons that are working in the district. So I want Dr. Holness, the District 5 school board member, who is doing an amazing job, to talk about, yeah, you can give him a hand, to talk about how the community can support the District 5 schools that need our help. Dr. Holness, and thank you for joining us. I know you had another commitment tonight.
Thank you so much, Senator Osgood. I really appreciate having such a wonderful senator representing us. Give her a round of applause. And it is such an honor to be here with such esteemed panel. Madam President Ellison, NAACP, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate inviting me, and State Rep Mr. Campbell as well. And our wonderful new hire here at Broward County Schools, Dr. Hepburn. Give him a round of applause. Now, as far as, I am so grateful that Dr. Licata has chosen Dr. Hepburn. He's really an awesome individual, very knowledgeable, very experienced. I think we're off to a great year. He's in charge of teaching and learning, and as you know, teaching and learning is really important as far as our D's and F schools. Now, I represent District 5, and in District 5, we have 5 D schools. Now, there are 7 D schools in Broward County, and 5 out of the 7 D schools are in District 5. There are also 2 F schools in Broward County, and those 2 F schools are also in District 5. So when I shook Dr. Hepburn's hand, he can tell you, the first thing I said to him is, we're gonna have to talk about our D's and F schools. Is that right, sir? So I am very committed to making sure that we are making a difference in these schools. And when I got elected, our D's and F schools were some of the first schools I've visited, and I've spoken with the principals, with the leadership staff, I've visited the classrooms, and I've gotten back at the time with Dr. Smiley to make sure that we are putting the right resources in these schools to make sure they're successful. Now, Dr. Smiley assured me that she would leave a folder of the things we're working on, and she would share that with Dr. Licata. She has done that, and Dr. Licata came to me and said he does have the folder, and we're going to be meeting next week as well. And the primary purpose of my meeting with Dr. Licata is to focus on these D's and F schools, because no school in Broward County should be a D or an F. We need to put the right resources. And I'll tell you this, as a long-time educator in Broward County, and I've been an educator for 25 years. I was in Broward County schools for about 17 years, most of those years as a teacher, mostly middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. And I'll tell you this, it is absolutely possible, like we did before, and when Senator was here, we didn't have any F schools and D schools. So we want to get back to that. We want to get back to making sure we don't have just one zone of excellence, we have Broward County-wide zone of excellence. And so I am very committed, and I will be working with the district leadership staff, with Dr. Licata and his team, and especially Dr. Hepburn. You really have a lot to do. You know, you're in Broward County. There's a lot of challenges, but we're going to meet them. And I'm going to work with this man here to make sure that we are bringing our school grades up, and we have all zones of excellence in Broward County. So I will say this. There are many concerns, and I don't know, Senator, if I should go into that as yet with the resolutions and so on, or should I wait for that? I can? Okay, so now all of us are concerned, and I know part of the latest concern that we have is how we teach African American history, and may I speak about, that's okay? All right, so there was a resolution that came forth before us a few weeks back that mentioned teaching African American history. I was very concerned about that resolution because a lot of the language in the resolution had to do with compliance. At the time, it did raise a red flag in my mind. Why do we have an African American history resolution that seemed to emphasize primarily compliance with state law? Whereby we already have an African American History Month resolution that celebrate our rich history, that celebrate our contribution to society, our achievement. So why are we now having a resolution that seem to celebrate being in compliance with certain laws? And by the way, many members of our community are not in agreement with some of those languages that are that we're being forced to teach, right? Because if you look at the recent changes to African American history and how it should be taught. We have, for example, where we're now, African American history is now being taught to say that African Americans benefited from slavery. And, you know, when you look at that, and also that when you look at the different race riots in this country, such as in the state of Florida here, the Ocoee riots, it is this type of way in which we should teach history is to suggest that in some way blacks were perpetrators of some of those riots. So I am very, very concerned. I'm very concerned about having resolutions that would tend to celebrate these kind of things. And I'm not saying we're not going to comply with law, because we will comply with the law to the extent of the law. But I am concerned about having a resolution where we're celebrating the idea of how our history should be taught. And that is very concerning to me. So at one of our board meetings, I request that when we had all of these resolutions, I request that we pull the African American history resolution and we take a greater look at that. Because when you look at the language of it, in fact, I have it here on my phone, initially when it came up, it had many more wording on compliance. And I sort of combed through it to remove a lot of those compliance wording. But there's still mention of compliance in 3 parts of it. And it's also mentioned the Ocoee riots as well. And remember, part of the way in which African American history are now being told to be taught is that in some way we are perpetrators of those riots as well. So I am concerned about this. And so I pulled this resolution, not the African American History Month, because I supported that, but I pulled this resolution to be tabled so the community can come down to the school board building and tell us how you feel. Because I can tell you this, as a member of this community, and as someone who's elected in District 5, and as a graduate of Dillard High School, my sister is a graduate of Parkway Middle School, also graduated from Dillard, and I've had African American history, but I've never had this emphasis on compliance, and compliance according to who and to what? And are we having the same emphasis on compliance with other history? Do we have many resolutions with numerous mention of compliance how you teach other people's history? So this is very concerning to me. And I am not saying as a board member that we're going to break the law. We're not going to comply with the law. But I don't think we should have a resolution in place where a resolution is celebrating something that seemed to be objectionable to many of the views of our community. So I want the community input. And in October, I believe it's October 10th, I want all of you to come out. I want all of you to come out and share your feelings, because I want to know how you feel so I can use your input to determine how I vote on that resolution. So I do encourage all of you to come out on, I believe it's October 10th, to share your views at that board meeting. All right, but I really appreciate being here, and Senator, as you know, my emphasis on the board as well is ESC students. So for our members here who have students with learning challenges, I am here for you. I am supporting you. And all of our ESC population, which is our students with learning disabilities, I want to make sure that they too have a fair chance to succeed. As a father with a son who has ADHD, auditory processing issues, I understand your issues if you have ESC students. And I will make sure that not only are we compliant, but that at the classroom level, those IEPs are being implemented with fidelity. And it must, because what happened is the IEPs, and I can tell you this, the IEPs in Broward County schools are well written. They are well written. If you read any IEP, we dot our I's, we cross our T's. But when it comes to implementation at the classroom level, when you walk through those classrooms, are those students really getting the accommodations written in those IEPs? And so, as a district, we must do a better job at classroom monitoring and compliance. And that's what I spoke to Dr. Licata about. We must be able to get into those classrooms. Oftentimes, when the schools are visited, they will go to the office, they will go through the IEPs, they will go to the ESC department, and they look at it, it looks great. But does it look great in the classroom? Is it being implemented in the classroom? Are those kids learning? Are those teachers really looking at every single aspect of that IEP to make sure that that kid has an equal opportunity to succeed just like any other kid? And I will work diligently to make sure that our ESC students are accommodated at the classroom level, and I've already spoken to Dr. Licata. I will push hard for that. I also do not want to see these schools nowhere in Broward County, especially not in District 5, and those 2F schools, we're going to bring those up because I'm going to make sure that we get all the resources we need to build our schools up. Thank you so much.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to open up the microphone. If you have a question, we're going to ask that you come ask the question. And remember, we're strategically meeting in this building so we can be true to ourselves. We're going to ask you to show up on Sunday to give your sermon. But if you have a question, or some information that you want additional information about, or if you have a comment about the new African American history standards, now is the time that you come. And we're going to ask that you be considerate of others when you make your comments, so try not to speak for 5 or 10 minutes. We want to get as many people as we possibly can, and we're going to start here with you, Mr. Pratt.
Greetings, everyone. Ansel Pratt with the Early Learning Coalition of Broward County, but also co-chair of the Education Subcouncil for Lauderdale Health and Prosperity Partnership. And my question is really about that. A few months ago, school board member, you actually attended the City of Lauderdale Commission meeting. You gave a report about how a lot of the Lauderdale schools were receiving a lot of referrals. One of the things that we've been hearing when we speak to social workers is about how personal hygiene has been a big issue with that. When you get to middle school and high school, a lot of kids are getting in fights because of that issues. And I think I reached out to you and appreciate you responding about that. But I wanted to find out more about what is it that, beyond talking about hygiene, because I think that that's an issue we hear from school social workers. But I want to hear about what are the things the community can do to help support those schools that are struggling within District 5.
Dr. Holness?
Okay, so as far as, I am so sorry. As far as incident reports and so on, for one thing, we do have to ensure as a district, however, that when we document incidents reports in our schools that we're doing so fairly across the board, and that when we use a discipline matrix that we are actually using it in an equitable manner. So as far as the community, it is important that when there are incidents, not only in our schools but in the community regarding any of our students, that those are communicated to us. We do try to build a great relationship with our community associations, with our city. I did visit the city of Lauderdale, and I did so in order to share our concerns and to see what concerns they have. And by the way, regarding incidents, the city of Lauderdale had mentioned to us that they have armed guards and they don't have SROs. Now, there has been unusual incidents at different schools, not only in District 5, but in other areas. But I did speak to Dr. Licata that in the city of Lauderdale, as well as for Parkway Middle School, as well as Lauderdale 6 through 12, that we can have SROs that are trained to deal with our students. So the city of Lauderdale actually requested that from us, and I took the lead on that, and now we'll have one SRO, Lauderdale 6 through 12, and one at Parkway Middle. But as far as incidents, I want to work diligently to make sure that when we apply the discipline matrix, that we're doing so in an equitable manner, that incidents that are really minor, that those can be handled with, at the classroom level, at the school level. So we want to make sure that we're working to ensure equitable treatment of our students using the discipline matrix. But the discipline matrix is usually what we use to document these types of incidents.
Thank you. Yes, sir, Mark.
Good evening. Okay. My name is Mark Johnson, and I have a two-part question that relates to the changes that were made with regards to the Black History curriculum in Florida schools. And it's really driven by the fact that one of the things that happened recently that really disturbed me is the fact that the state of Florida has approved the showing of PragerU for Kids videos within our schools. And I highly encourage everybody in this room to go to YouTube and watch these PragerU for Kids videos, because you will be appalled at how twisted these videos are and just completely twisting history. So my question is, and again, it's a two-part question. I would like to know your opinions on how, in the meantime, as we're fighting what's going on with legislation and Black History curriculum, how can we equip parents to help teach their children the truth that will circumvent the lies that they're hearing in schools and through these videos? And then the second part of the question is, I'd love to hear your opinion in terms of the role that you believe our churches should play in terms of teaching our children and combating what they're learning from these videos.
So I'm going to start right off by saying I immediately reached out to Dr. LaCarter about the PragerU videos and curriculum and asked him if we would be using it in Broward County schools, and he told me absolutely not. If he had told me, yeah, this would be a different meeting. It is appalling. It is a right-wing curriculum that's not accredited, that's being led by this conservative movement to indoctrinate our kids. When we hear certain people using certain words, it's their way of telling us exactly what they are doing. So we're not using that curriculum. We go to the church. We call it the Black church. The Black church has been teaching Black history. We cannot let people think that we don't teach our own history in our communities. We've been doing it. We need to step up our game and do it. Maybe we need to work with the school district to see how we can fund some after-school programs, some Saturday programs. A lot of us are Black history, but that's another conversation that we're going to move to in our office. We're going to put in place a community education committee. And we're going to begin to talk about how we work as a community, because the district can only do so much within the hours of the day that they have. They have a lot of boxes to check. But we have to extend the arms of the district by working in after-school programs, Saturday programs, in different ways that we can help our kids. We can also show up at school board meetings during public speaking time and talk about Black history. We can say whatever we want to say during that public speaking time, but we cannot sit back and allow our history to be mistaught or allow our kids to be misinformed. You can also use your social media page. You know, I'm making that personal commitment. We do a lot on social media. Many of you older folks are on Facebook. If you're a millennial born in the wrong generation like me, you're on Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat, and Twitter. But we have a lot of ways that we can get correct information out ourselves. And at the end of the day, brothers and sisters, we cannot be upset with the state about and pushing them to do something that we're not doing for ourselves. And I'll say that very gently. I'm going to go to former Commissioner Beverly Williams.
Let me just say one thing.
Okay, go ahead.
Mark, there is a movement between teachers' unions, NAACP, and Black churches to form what we are calling freedom libraries, where free books are being given and then libraries would be at the church, and so many of the churches do have staff and volunteers who come, and so when the children come by, they can check out a book, read a book, hear about a book, any of those things. So we have asked for the NAACP and its partners, Faith in Florida and others, to ask for churches who want to serve and conduct and hold these freedom libraries that will help us educate our children. Thank you.
Representative Campbell.
And thank you for that, Mark. I also want to let people know that, you know, we in Broward are so fortunate because we have all these services here ready and available. So I always tell people to reach out to your library. Right now, we have a wonderful thing going on at our Lake Library where they are providing numerous resources. They're hiring teachers to actually teach Black history and doing services like that. And so get involved with your local library, tap into those resources. They have numerous resources available, and we all have social media pages. I suggest that you follow you, shameless plug. I'm Rep. Campbell on Instagram, State Representative Daryl Campbell on Facebook. We are constantly posting all the events that are occurring in the community that you can reach out to, and it's easy to be accessible that way too, in sharing your comments and even sending us messages so that we can vet it and reshare that information. And that's how we stay connected, by connecting with one another here.
And,
Thank you, Representative Campbell.
Senator Osgood.
Go ahead.
I just want to also mention that you must never be too busy for your children. We all have busy lives, but we must spend time with our children, and there must be times within our 24 hours that we dedicate to our children. They should never be left for last. If you're not knowledgeable, educate yourself so you can educate your children. Because conversations with your children to whom they trust their parents. What you tell them will supersede anything they're being told in schools. So you must educate yourselves, and you must use that education to find time to spend with your children. As busy as we all are, the most important individuals we have to extend our time to is our offspring, is our children. So educate yourselves in a positive way that is uplifting, and use that knowledge to have conversation with your children. They will believe you more than they will believe what they hear in schools.
Thank you. Want to recognize Pastor Eddie Moise from Bethel AME in Pompano, a part of Faith in Florida. Thank you for being here. Commissioner Williams.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I am Beverly Williams, and I am an activist, I will say. I grew up in Pensacola, Florida, Escambia County, Northwest Florida, and I grew up during the time when we boycotted for the right to vote. As a matter of fact, my husband was one of the teenagers that they went into the Newberries and the Woolworths and at the counters because they would not send in the parents because they would get fired from their job. Now, every Friday night we were at the mass meeting, so I'm glad to see us here at a church, okay, because our churches have not been stepping to the plate. You know, I don't know if they talk about the money that they're getting from the federal government. I don't know about that. But I do tell you this. I moved here in 1972. I lived on Davie Boulevard and 31st Avenue, okay? 3 years ago, I found out some devastating news, and it bothers me when I pass through on Davie Boulevard and 31st. That is where they hanged Stacey Rubin. I lived in the apartment complex just west of that. You know, and for y'all's governor to stand up and say that, you know, our history, you can't take away what I went through with. You can't take away that from me. And when I see, you know, we're here, and we have got to come out of these places here, okay? My daughter's 50, but he still goes to SAC meeting at Boyd Anderson High School. And when he goes there, you can't find the parents there. None of the parents are not there. But I tell you what, if you go to Lauderdale Lakes or with that park, Vincent Torres Park, you're going to find a whole bunch of people out there. But you cannot get them to come out. So we have got to make changes. I'm hoping that I will be at the school board meeting. You know, I run my mouth so much sometimes it gets on my nerves. But we have got to be there to take care of our kids and to change my history. You can't take away what I went through with. Thank you all.
Thank you. Commissioner Dunn.
Yes, good evening. Commissioner Melissa P. Dunn, City of Lauderdale. Thank you so much for creating this space for us to share our concerns. Dr. Holness, thank you for listening to us, to our request to have the resource officers in the school in Lauderdale. So thank you for making that happen for us. I have a question, Senator Osgood and State Rep Campbell. What can we do right now to prepare you, to support you guys as you're up in Tallahassee, so that perhaps we can maybe propose a way to amend this law to get rid of it? So that's my first question. And then my second question is in regards to the Promise program. I would love to see how I, in my capacity, could support you in keeping that in Broward County.
Absolutely.
I'll defer to the lower chamber.
Well, thank you, Senator. and thank you for being here, Commissioner. So one of the things that I see that you can do in helping us support is showing up. One of the things that I recognized within the short time I've spent my time in Tallahassee is that it's not enough of us up there. They don't see our faces, and so they feel they can do whatever they want because people are not showing up on these issues regarding that. And so figuring out ways to come up there, make sure that they hear the issue, and that you're not just talking to people that you are allied with, that you're talking with people across party lines that are in disagreement with what your views is on that topic, because they need to hear you, and whether it's their aide or them themselves, you need to meet with them, and you need to constantly stay engaged with them and figure out ways to stay engaged with them, letting them know your frustration and letting them know what this is doing within our community, because they are blindsided by what down here represents. They're used off into their districts, and so constantly talking with them about how that affects your district, your area, your population is definitely key to that movement, and it's something that I'm looking for. I'm working with the senator and figuring out how do we get you guys up in Tallahassee for a lot of days of actions.
Thank you, and I agree. I have a history of moving church buses and vans, so we need to collaborate and work with our churches and load up on those vans and buses and make some trips up to Tallahassee. It is so critically important, and it can't just be Black people. We have a lot of people that are not Black people that are allies, that are in this fight, that care, but Broward County needs to certainly have a greater presence in Tallahassee. And when you're there, and Judge Holmes, you will be proud of me. I spent a lot of time on the red carpet in Tallahassee. You literally have blue carpet and red carpet. You have to spend time on both carpets so that everybody understands your issue. When I go to vote on the Senate floor, I vote on everything across the state of Florida, not just on what's going on in Broward County. And if you're not helping me lift up your voice to people that are on the other side, they may lock their door when they hear my shoes coming down the hall. But if you're emailing, you're making your phone calls, you're showing up in committee meetings, and I mean, strange things happen. We have people like Representative Williams that was on like education committees, different committees for year after year, that was just kind of moved off those committees. So it's things like that that happen, and when they don't hear from the community, then they think it's okay. So I think it's harder for people to hurt us if they have to look at us. So thank you for that question. And you had one question for President Ellison.
Yes, ma'am. And that's the best news I've heard all evening, that Lauderdale, because there was not that long ago where we received a memo from your chief saying that Lauderdale no longer believed in second chances and promise. The good news is we were able to get with the commission and the mayor to say that once your commission moved and took action, it was out of that chief's hands. And so Lauderdale, that administration stood up, and we'll be asking you to stand with us again as we move to support our children. We had Representative Bobby Dubose, who has left the House but never left the fight, and Representative Pat Williams, who always, and so on and so on. So we've had senators, and so we would love to have your commission to stand with us. We need standing up for all children, and especially those who are being mistreated by this district, by this system of systemic racism. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, wonderful. We'll talk.
Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for doing such a wonderful job by being here and addressing what we know is the best thing ever, our children. My name is Dr. Nadia Assad. I'm a candidate for Lauderdale Commission coming up in November 24, and I am looking forward to working with you. I have a comment in regard to the answer that you provide to Melissa Dunn. When it comes to letting everybody know, bringing everybody together, we have a huge population that are dying for education, that wants to know what's going on. Unfortunately, they have not been able to find the people to come and educate them, the resource to educate them, because they don't speak the same language as you guys. We're talking about the Haitian community. They are dying to come and join you guys, but unfortunately, it has not been easy to reach out to them. So I'm looking forward to working with you guys, and then they're looking forward to come and stand with you guys for all of those things that are happening. My question is in regard to the mental health, it's an issue, the behavioral health is an issue, and so on for our kids. So now, looking at what's going on in our school district system, what are the resources that we are putting in place to help those children that have the behavioral problem, that have the problem at the house, that need a social worker that understand them to pull them out of what they're going through? And particularly, again, those international students that I have been working with that have been crossing through Brazil to come here, that got been raped, that's still getting beat up at home, and nobody sees them. So we need to look at those kids as well. What are we doing? What are the resources that we can help them?
Okay, so you got my attention. Because if you tell me that kids are being raped and beat up at home, if you know about it, we all should know about it.
Yes.
I can tell you that the district has stuff in place to address the needs of those kids. And see, when we're working in the community and we're leading in the community, we have to share the information with those persons that can make a difference. We work across ethnicity. The district has bilingual interpreters in the district to share information. I don't like when we come into these places and we start talking about leaving somebody out or somebody behind. I don't tolerate that. I love my entire community, and we work real hard to make sure that the community is dressed total. That's why my staff is very, very diverse. So if you have that information, your first recourse is to your school board member. If that's happening in a District 5 school and you know about it, if you don't empower the elected official, whether you vote for them or not, once they're elected, they're in that position. They can't solve a problem. We can't solve problems that you don't make us aware of when we're in an intimate setting where we can get all the details. When you come in here and say it, then we have to respond in a certain way because you're putting us on the spot about something that you haven't told us that should be urgent. I'm still trying to think, where are these kids that's being raped and beat at home? We can address that right now.
Yeah.
We can get BSO, Lauderdale, or whatever, and we can deal with that right now.
Please, because
I mean,
they
I'm
spoke
not going to
about
be
it.
able to sleep tonight
Yes.
without knowing that those kids in
Yes.
that situation is not addressed.
Yes, they spoke about it, and they scared because they are undocumented. They're not living home with their parents, so they need help. They need help.
Well, I will follow up with you after this meeting because we
Please,
want to.
thank you.
It doesn't matter to me whether a kid is documented or undocumented. They my kids, and I don't want them being hurt.
Thank you,
So
thank you so
thank you
much.
for those comments, Commissioner Martin.
Yes, good evening. I'm Lauderdale Commissioner Ray Martin, and I just wanted to also echo what my colleague Melissa Dunn said. I want to thank you for taking this time and giving this space to our community, and I want to thank the community for coming out and taking this opportunity. But I did have the same two questions that she did, so I look forward to supporting you in that cause with the Shines program, as well as how can we help up in Tallahassee to make change down here. So thank you so much for what you guys are doing. Thank you.
Senator Osgood, can I just add in on this point? You know, there's a number of elected officials that are in this space tonight. There's a number of faith-based leaders, pastors that are in this space tonight. There are principals, there are educators, there are community members that are in this space tonight. we have to do better at making sure that we talk to each other. My phone number is probably on every bathroom wall, because I get phone calls and text messages and emails all day and all night, because I try to make myself available to people. If you need me in your community, just make a call, and I'll be there. If you need Madam President, if you need Doc Osgood, if you need any one of these folks on this panel, we will be there. But we have to better communicate with each other. We cannot live in silos and point fingers and then ask ourselves why we're not progressing together. Unify. I said there was something special in Broward County. Y'all are not hearing me. There's something very special in Broward County. And if we do not seize on that moment and start pulling it together, we're going to work right into their hands. So use all these folks that are in this room. Get their phone numbers, get their cell phone, text them, call them, email them about your concerns. And if they don't return your call, vote them out.
Senator Osgood, I
Yes,
just want to make
Dr.
a quick
Holness.
comment as well. My office is open to any concerns. My email is jeffholness@broadschools.com. I have cards on the table in the back. Any concerns that you have, send it to my office. Once it's provided in writing, we actively work on that for you, make sure we get the results that you want the best we can. My secretary is Janice Edward. You can also email her, and she'll make sure the respective department answer your questions. And Brother Gordon Weeks, I am so sorry, sir. I could not see you on the far end when I came up, but thank you for being here as well.
Good seeing you, Doctor.
And I wanted to say, Dr. Assad, Dr. Assad, right? Thank you so much, and congrats on your education accomplishment as well. But I want to let you know regarding the Haitian community. I am committed to make sure that we have appropriate resources to help our students, especially our ESOL students. In fact, I have contacted as well Mr. Ronald Surin, and I am working to see if he can be a valuable resource on our Human Relations Council. He will be giving me an answer tomorrow because we're working to put him in that role as one of the advisory members so we can better have dialogue on how we can help the Haitian community as well. So any concerns you have, be sure to send it to my office. And I am very excited and hoping that we'll have Mr. Surin as well on our Advisory Council for the Human Relations. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. I want to say thank you to all of our esteemed guests, and especially thank you for meeting with the community at a church, because we definitely know we raise communities, families come out of churches, and so we want to say thank you. I also want to echo, along with my Commissioner Melissa P. Dunn, thank you, Dr. Holness, for the 2 resource officers that we will have at 2 of our Lauderdale schools. So we want to say thank you for that. My name is Madeline Noel. I'm a parent leader. I am a Lauderdale Proud Ambassador. And one of our duties, which we get to do, is go around the communities, to schools and churches, and meet with you all, is to bring everyone together, because we feel it is going to take all of us. It's going to take us all to come together, speak on behalf of our kids, because they are vulnerable and they need our voices, and they need our voices to be heard. As you know, a number of our schools in District 5 need major renovations. A few weeks ago, we were on a call with a lot of the schools out west, and we just heard so much of how much funding is invested into those schools to bring them up. And so the question that I have, for our schools that need major renovations, how much of those schools are part of this year's budget to be renovated? And if it's not 100%, my question would be why it's not 100%. And the second question that I have, as part of the discipline matrix, does it involve regularly meeting with our faith-based community, with our community associations, because that is one of the things that we did discuss at our Lauderdale Commissioners meeting, so that we form a team and collectively work on behalf of our students?
Thank you. Dr. Holness?
Okay, so regarding the renovation of our schools, as a board, I don't know if you've watched our board meetings lately, but I do encourage everyone to do so. I know sometimes it can be a bit long-winded and dry at times, but we do have valuable information that we share. What I would say is regarding the renovation of the schools, we as a board, we have committed to ensure that specifically the smart bond renovation aspect, that the smart bond renovations are completed by October 2025. So that's a commitment that we've made as a board. When the new board came in November, the new board members, along with the existing board members, we put that forth, and we are very serious that we get that done, and we are ensuring that prime contractors like ACOM, that they get this job done by 2025. So this applies to all of the schools. And as far as District 5 schools, I have taken certain measures as well, like at a recent board meeting, we needed covered walkways for Castle Hill Elementary, and those were scheduled to be done 2027. I said, we can't wait until 2027, so I put forth a motion that we move this timeline up by a couple of years, and it was approved by a majority of the board to move that up to 2025 so we get those covered walkways for Castle Hill Elementary. In addition to that, I know that we have a lot of needs throughout the district. Now, for the covered walkways specifically, there were 6 schools receiving covered walkways under this current budget. They have one of our schools in District 5 and then the other schools in other districts. But there are schools that need covered walkways. The district may not have that in this year's budget, but what I've done with our superintendent, Dr. Licata, is to speak with him personally to see if we can get temporary covered walkways so our children will not get wet going from portables or on the bus loop and so on. So we will have temporary covered walkways, I am being told, for Parkway Middle as well. And regarding the renovation of Parkway Middle School specifically, we will be building new buildings at Parkway. The superintendent and I are meeting with Ms. Flowers. I believe that meeting is coming up in a couple of weeks. How basically the timeline for ensuring Parkway has these new buildings situated, and how we can actually reduce that timeline as well. So there's a lot of dialogue going into the renovations of schools throughout the district and those with needs. Now, I visit schools, 1 or 2 schools every week, and we talk about different aspect of renovation, roofing, flooring, and so on. And if I notice specific issues, I make sure those issues are viewed as paramount and taken care of. And I meet with the superintendent monthly to see if we can expedite those issues. And that's what I've been doing on a weekly basis to ensure the schools in District 5 are getting those Smart Bond projects expedited. And those projects that are outside of Smart Bond, that they find the money to do it. So I do that consistently every week, and I meet with the superintendent once a month to discuss
Thank
those.
you, Dr. Holness. I'm also going to ask that she follow up with you because the district education facility plan is there, and maybe some more one-on-one time you could kind of walk us through in an intimate way. We're going to have to try to move the line. The pastor said we could stay, but we can't stay all night. So we're going to try to move the line, but we want to make sure that we give you an opportunity to engage Deacon Campbell.
Certainly, thank you. My name is Don Campbell, 64-year resident of Broward County, the proud husband of an educator and the proud father of 2 educators. And after I retired after 37 years, I find myself as a part-time educator. This message or comment to Dr. Hepburn. The other day as I walked through this school, I noticed some books that I read as a child and as an adult or in high school. One was A Cat in the Hat. One was Moby Dick and Romeo and Juliet. And I know there's a list that they have someplace on web in terms of the books that's been removed. You mentioned that the person would have to go to the principal and there's a committee. I wasn't sure the makeup of the committee. Was it your staff or was it citizens within Broward County to determine whether or not that book or many books should be removed? Thank you.
Excellent question.
It's both. This is staff and also external stakeholders such as yourself.
Okay, so they're not appointed, or how are they communicated in terms of reached to sit on that, to be on that committee?
It could be various ways. It could be directly appointed by the superintendent, could be a PTSA member, could be a SAC member. So it's people who have some, if it's a school-based issue, people who have some familiarity with the school, based on previous committees they're already on, because the principal may be familiar with that. But if you want to be on a future committee, I would definitely reach out to your
Don
school.
Campbell.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Carter?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Patricia Carter. I have a concern about students in the Cambridge program. Will you share with us how they will be affected by the changes in African history or any other changes that may affect those students in that program?
Thank you for that question. So for those who aren't familiar with the Cambridge program, wonderful accelerated program. When students have an opportunity to engage in that, and there are completers of that program, satisfactory completer with a Cambridge ACE diploma, you get a Bright Future scholarship. So you essentially get a free ride to a state school. As far as the specific curriculum she's talking about with African American Studies, it won't have any impact on our Cambridge ACE programs in our school. So no impact to those programs at all. No impact to AP, no impact to IB, so no impact to those type of programs at all.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Fania Desnord. I am a proud teacher in District 7 and a proud parent in District 5. So my questions, I have two questions that I just really want answered tonight, or if not, we can talk about it later. And I know someone mentioned about bringing the community together, and if they're in the parks, we need to be in the parks, right? We need to meet the people where they are, because essentially, I wouldn't be here if practice wasn't canceled, but I'm here. But my question is, what will happen if Promise does end? Is there a plan in place? What can we do to be proactive and not reactive? That's my question, number one. And number two is, how can we ensure funding in our mentoring programs, such as Mentoring Tomorrow's Leaders and 5,000 Role Models, which I proudly serve as an academic coordinator?
As far as Promise, the district is starting with the alternative to external suspension, which means, in essence, we will return to the days of old. So those children will be suspended, they will be arrested, suspended, and then expelled in many cases. Black children will be that. And I said that same thing I said to the school board. Black and Latino children, particularly black, are always the worst in all those categories. And so if there is no Promise program, those resources go away, and those children will be treated as criminals. And we're not talking about any felonies now. We're talking about things that probably you and I did. And you know, how can you be the victim in a fight? Nobody's hurt, you know, nobody's bleeding, no scratches. You're the victim, and you get arrested, suspended, and taken away, and you don't even get an opportunity. Those are the type of things. We're talking about children with special needs. The district will tell you there are laws in place. Yes, there are, but in many cases, they're not being followed. And so what we're asking is for us to go back down to the school board, for many of us have gone many times, and ask them to, you know, we've been asked, one of our school board members, not this one, asked that Promise go away earlier because of policy that is changing and making them be civil citation. That's not the law. That's policy of those new folk that were put on the school board that are punishing our children. And so the direction is coming down directly from the governor's office to those members of his appointees to make sure that Promise goes away. The effect is going to be devastating on black children, in particular in Broward County. And so that's why we're asking for us to go back to the school board. Someone asked about the matrix earlier. The community has been removed from the process, disciplinary matrix and code of conduct. We are not doing, and when you get on, I got back on thanks to Dr. Holness. It was community driven. We had there were school leaders, teachers, principals, that sort of thing. The crew that's assembled now is just pushing everything through, putting us back to where we were, where you punish first and worry about whatever else later on when it comes to the matrix. The matrix is where it took us back 10 years in this year's last few months process. So no, they are not involving the community. We did have the word of Dr. Licata. He was trying to get a job then, so we're gonna see, that he would bring back the community. to the process. Then that includes not only the NAACP and parents, but also the state attorney's office was excluded under this last regime, the public defender's office, the state senators, the state representative. We were all excluded, parents, from the process. They were just doing what they wanted to do, following the rules of the governor that's going on, and not somebody has to care about our children. So we know we are those people, so we're asking to go down proactively before they scrap it and go back to throwing away our children.
And what date is that?
29th.
Thank you for that question.
And
and we're asking Dr. Holness, if at all possible, work on a time certain, and he has said he's going to do that. So we will then get the word out if we are at time certain. But I just go and pack a lunch because, you know, that's one of the strategies. They try to wait you out, you know.
And she said something that buzzed in my ear that I'm a major advocate for, that I think is the best mentoring program in the whole wide world, and that's Mentoring Tomorrow's Leaders. So I would like to hear how we're funding that now and what's going on with the funding for that.
Okay, so I just want to mention quickly about Promise, and then I'll get into the other comment. Now, I have fought diligently for Promise, and I've worked with Madam President Ellison as well. We had managed Promise was on the table before, and I had managed to fight for Promise, and ended up, I believe it was a 5-4 vote to keep Promise. I thought that was it. Then Promise is back on the table again. So I encourage you to please show up and voice how you feel about it. It is very concerning because we don't really know what the true impact will be should they get rid of Promise. And it's been a very consistent, persistent effort to do so. So I encourage everyone to really, really show up. But on that board, I have been a strong advocate to keep Promise. I thought I succeeded, Madam President, and it's back on the table again. So we're going to have to. Yes, so we're going to have to continue work for. Now, regarding the mentoring program, could you repeat your question on that?
Oh, wow. I think I asked, how are we going to continue to fund programs such as Mentoring Tomorrow's Leaders and 5,000 Role Models?
Okay, so as far as the specific funding of it, I would get back to you on that, but certainly it's something that I am strongly for, and I'm going to ensure that we continue to fund the mentoring program as well. So I will let my office reach out to you to give you specific information on not only how it's funded, how we'll continue to fund it.
Thank you.
How will Promise impact us if they get rid of it? The courtrooms will be filled again. My office will be filled again. I will be representing more children in this community than ever before again. That is what's going to happen when they get rid of Promise. That's what happened before Promise. When Promise came into play, let me just give you this history. Broward County Courthouse has 4 juvenile courtrooms in the delinquency side. They are the largest courtrooms in the courthouse. The reason why they were the largest courtrooms because historically there were so many children arrested in Broward County, you need to have those big old spaces for everybody to come into court. Promise took place. We've advocated to reduce the number of children that were arrested and suspended from schools. Those courtrooms have now become much, much, much more manageable. I can assure you, 18 months after Promise is gone, walk into those courtrooms, they'll be packed shoulder to shoulder to shoulder with people standing outside waiting to come in again. That's what's going to happen if they get rid of Promise.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. Carlene Bruneau, Lauderdale resident. The first 25 years of my life, I've been a product of Brooklyn, New York. So that Brooklyn girl has come down here. The second 25 years of my life, I'm raising children in this district. 28-year-old daughter, she's a product of Broward County Schools. 17-year-old, 14-year-old. We voted, I did not, we voted to renew on August 23rd, 2022, secure the next generation referendum, which raised funds from from $500,000 in, I believe, 2016 to $1 million to our schools. You know, it raised our property taxes. That's fine. We're going to support our schools, enhance essential programs, increase teacher compensation for retention and recruitment, school resource officers, which is sad to think that Lauderdale is only acquiring 2 officers, and other safety staff. My question 1, sir? Mr. Holness, have schools been assessed for safety risks? You know, it's nice to say we're gonna have walkways, you know, which are exterior beauties. With the $500,000, we saw a lot of schools acquiring marquees, but our interiors, you know, for safety risks, for safety, say the layout of the land, the building structures, our exterior parameters. I know Taravella now, I used to be able to just drive onto Taravella. It's a fortress. Marjorie, Storm, and Douglas, we know it's a fortress now. You know, those schools are secure. Royal Palm Elementary right down the street, we could drive right up or walk right up. So how are some of those funds, how are we making sure that we acquire part of that? And actually, $1 million is to generate $177 million for Broward County schools. So that's a lot of money being spoken. I need more than just walkways for our children. You know, we need to know what's going on with our schools. That's
and Dr.
one.
Holness, you're going to have to meet with her to give
Correct.
some explicit
Yes, ma'am.
details. If you could respond quickly, and then you can
No,
meet with her.
so we opened up the meeting. Thank you so much, Representative Campbell. You spoke of mental wellness. You know, we advocate for mental well-being, definitely. We parents, let's make sure that, you know, we're getting our checks as well. Definitely, because we can't help our babies if we're not well. I have a 17-year-old who I called on. I used to work for Henderson Mental Health as a nurse. I know that, hey, my child, you know, we're 17 now, you're taller than me, you're bigger than me, we're gonna get you some help before they come for me. So definitely that had to be done. You know, we're securing that our young men grow into successful, our young boys grow into successful men.
I don't want him to cut my mic off, and I don't want to cut you off, but we on time right now that we got to get through the line because you were supposed to ask a question. And you did, and then so I'm gonna,
Deputy Superintendent, please.
I'm gonna
allow
ask
Dr.
you
Licata to know that
if
he
you
can
would,
come to these meetings as
I will
well.
spend time with you after, we will, because I want to hear what you got to say, but I want to try to get the others through the line as well. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to see all of you. I'm Christina Fisher, and I was chair of the Broward Education Foundation, and I've been on it for 15 years, and I was the chairwoman during Stoneman Douglas, so Senator Osgood and I spent a lot of time together. And some of the things that you're talking about here, I'm also in Washington, D.C. a lot, and I was named the CEO of the Africa Economic Growth Summit by the president. And I have dealt with all 80 countries in Africa. And I was talking to Kamala Harris and President Biden, and they are interested in what's going on with us and the Africa education system. So I may be able to schedule some meetings for you guys to do some special things. And I also, there are a lot, because I'm on the phone with Washington, D.C. every week, there are a lot of grants now to do some of the construction things that need to be done for schools. And I'm also dealing with Robert Runcie on a new program that we're doing that's for shooting, to stop shooting in schools. And we are dealing with that across the country. So there are lots of things, and there are lots of grants, and to have clean air and health care, and to, really, there's billions that we worked on. So I'd like to get with some of you, and maybe some of you would like to go. And actually, the presidents of Africa also said, well, we would love to have some American students come because they have a university called the America University over there. That's amazing. And they said, we'd love to have some student visitors from your country. So there's a lot of very exciting things.
And thank you for all that you do, and we certainly will follow up with you. Yes, sir, Pastor Green.
Yes, I just want to say quickly, I really appreciate the conversation and the dialogue. A lot of us who are faith leaders, men and women who are pastoring these churches, we want to educate the members of our churches who aren't doing anything, as well as the ones who want to. And I think the brilliance and the folly of what DeSantis is doing in Tallahassee is that the attack on African-American education is at the AP level, or is it in the honors classes? And we don't have a framework nor a name to what we're fighting. And I believe a lot of people in the community don't know exactly where to go to fight it. And I want us, when we leave this meeting, to have a plan and something that these churches, we can take back to our churches and say, this is what we're going to do. Now, Attorney Weeks said something brilliant in regards to our superintendent. I served almost 10 years in a church that had representation in this school board from brothers who looked like us. And when he got to the point of making bold decisions and trying to course correct through bold actions, the community, us, did not stand up for him in a way that was transformative for the community. And so my appeal is help us stand up for you, stand up for our elected officials and our leaders in Broward County. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Green. Rabbi Kitty.
Rabbi Noah Kitty, I've been privileged to meet most of the folks on the panel. I'm here because I believe, in one level, I was sent. But I saw something on TV, whether it was a news program or a movie, I'm not sure, where a black man was crying that the white folks keep moving the goalposts. And I realized that the lie was not about moving the goalposts. The lie was convincing folks that there actually were goalposts, that there actually was something that minority communities could do to fix what they were complaining about. And I don't see it. But I do have a history question, which is, who remembers what happened on December 5th, 1955? Anybody? December 5th, 1955? Montgomery? It might be time. If 99,000 plus students in Broward County didn't show up, what would they do? If you're not going to teach our kids the truth, then we're not going to send our kids to your school, and that's it.
Thank you. Ms. Lockhart-Talley.
Good evening, Tracy Lockhart-Talley. I'm going to stick to the question. My question is, has there been a survey done of the teachers who are expected to deliver the African American history, and what types of support are you giving them so they're comfortable with the material?
Currently, to my knowledge, I don't think a survey's been done, but we provide immense support through professional development throughout the summer and continuous throughout the year, supporting them in small, concentrated groups for specific content areas that we call PLCs. So we have people that push in, support them in those PLCs. We have school-wide professional development. We have department-level professional development. We have access to meaningful resources at their fingertips at any moment. But prior to me coming out, I don't know if there's a survey that's been sent out to see what specific needs are. They may have, but I can't speak to that.
Thank you. And we're gonna stop the lines after these people because Pastor's been very kind to us. So we'll have another town hall. We want to be able to come back. Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Robert Crum, proud parent of 3 kids, 1 graduated, 2 actually going into the school system right now. And I have 2 questions. Actually, it's all about blueprints. Pastor just actually mentioned it earlier. We as a community are definitely looking to be more active and involved in our community. One of the things we have done is start to do community projects with doing different beautifications, projects in local schools. But oftentimes we run out of resources. So we as a community, one, we want to start learning how do we actually get in contact, do the connection with the resources that you guys have at the higher levels. Of course, we're out and trying to apply for grants and ask for donations, but the power behind getting your support, reference to proposals, can actually really help us boost ourselves. I can say Ms. Sheila McCormick at one point with our community put out a request for different proposals, but it was for a short period of time. We really never seen anything like that or had that opportunity, and don't really know if something of that sort is available with you guys, but also to boost up a level where we can possibly see some examples of some proposals so that we can say, okay, we can actually have a blueprint of how to request and ask for funding so that we can get more programs and give our communities the support that they need. Thank you.
So there is a state appropriations process. If you are not on the eBell blast list for my office or Representative Campbell, we're going to ask you to go to the website and sign up because we send out that information and you have to fill out a form. We can't fill it out for you. Once you fill it out, then we can put it in the process for the state appropriation. It's the same thing that's done on the federal level. Representative Campbell.
Yeah, and to add to that, one of the things that I mentioned at some of my town halls that I did, is that we want to get you guys engaged, and we want to do events and host events about showing you how to file appropriation, understanding the process. And so that's something that me and my office and my team are working on in contingent with Senator Osgood as we begin to prepare for the next upcoming session. So we'll definitely keep you posted on that.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Before I begin, please give this panel a round of applause. What we have here is a fine example of what I call black excellence. A fine panel of men and women. My name is Curtis Henry. I'm a 61-year-old father, divorced father of 3 young boys. And I believe my job as a parent, as a father, is to raise those 3 young boys into strong men. Hear my words again. Men. I have an issue, what I see going on around the country, with teachers coming into the classroom and bringing their personal lives and introducing it to children. As I said, my job is to raise my boys into men. And it will be a cold day in hell if a teacher comes into that classroom and tries to convince my son, Joseph, that he could now identify as Josephine. I do not stand for this as a parent, and I do believe that whatever people practice within their homes should stay within their homes and not come into the classroom. It would be inappropriate for me to come here this evening and say, my name is Curtis Henry, I love fat women. That's no one's business, what I do behind closed doors. It should be no different for teachers. Keep your personal lives out of the classroom. Let's stick to reading, writing, and arithmetic, and leave the sexuality out of the classrooms. What is being done now to ensure that our young boys are going to grow up into healthy, strong black men like you are?
Dr. Hepburn.
Thanks for the question. Simply put, we ask our teachers to stick to the standard. So, and I think I want to echo what I've heard up here, and for many, that conversation with your kids when they get home, asking them those simple questions: how was school, what was said, what was done? And if you hear those things, you need to alert the principal. You need to raise it above the principal as necessary, but we ask teachers to stick to the standards, stick to the scope and sequence, stick to the curriculum, nothing less, nothing more. So they don't infuse their personal views or infuse anything else that they shouldn't be seeing in the classroom or doing in the classroom with our students. And if you're talking to your kids and something like that arises, please let us know.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Hankerson.
Good evening to everyone. My name is Ellison Hankerson Harris. I'm a proud pioneer of Fort Lauderdale and Black Broward County. My family ensured that my generation, the next generation, would have equal share in a good education. And today I'm kind of saddened. I had to come after picking up from band practice, picking up from choir practice, but I felt it was important to be here tonight. I'm glad that you all are here, but I'm saddened that you're here just because the governor pulled some books about our history. Our kids have been suffering in Broward County schools in our community for a very long time. And I'm not just saying that. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here, but I'm sad when I see somebody who does not look like me, who's trying to hold the Broward County School Board accountable for a lawsuit to ensure that our kids have equal education. I have a 2nd grader, I have a pre-K, I have an 11th grader, and they're all part of District 5 in that Proud Panther area, because we are Proud Panthers. I called Board Member Holness' office a while ago. When the first year of last year's school, 5 principals were moved from our schools. Key schools in not anybody else's community. I'm talking about that black quarter of Sistrum. Nobody said a word. It wasn't in the newspaper. There were no meetings. And these were principals who were not up to high standards teaching our kids. I want to see something done. I'm glad you all are here tonight, but it should not take a room. We have different parents now. I'm a grandparent starting over again, a grandparent. All of my friends are retired, enjoying vacation. I'm doing stuff for my grandkids. But it shouldn't just take DeSantis
taking something away that he can never take away. Because if you're provided a good home in this community, this is a strong community. All I know about is Broward County and the history of Broward County. That's why I'm able to stand here and say this. We need your help. It shouldn't take him doing something in Tallahassee. When you were knocking on doors, loading my mailbox up with leaflets, vote for me, I shouldn't have to. You should be running here, letting all of these ministers know, all of these black organizations know what's going on with our kids, so that nobody will be coming from the outside in saying, oh, we got you, we pulling this. No, we need to be ahead of the game. Yes, it is something special about Broward County. And I know my mother, Dr. Gwendolyn Hankinson, is forever excited about it. We have a black public defender, a black state attorney. We are doing things in this county, and let our kids recognize our power, that we are powerful people, not somewhere else, right here in Broward County. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
How y'all doing? I want to say thank y'all for having this this time. I know that there's a lot of information shared, and like anything, it's going to take time, collective energy, and money, right? We know that that's what it's going to take. But two questions I have is, how do we target the youth to want to learn our history while promoting the benefits of knowing our history? For example, knowing that you come from inventors, knowing that you come from thriving communities that were built and destroyed. Once you know that information, what's the bridge to duplicating that? So now you can invent more. Now we can grow, we can build. Like what's that bridge look like? And also, where's the space for increasing mentors to assist teaching and educating black history, accredited black history, and helping the youth before they start getting in trouble? Because if you're doing stuff at school, it's kind of too late, but it's not too late, depending on whether this proposition stays or not. Those are my two questions.
Those are some long questions. Let's see if I can remember. So let me start with the mentorship. I know schools are always welcoming mentors. It can be simply just coming in and signing in as a visitor and going through the usual checks as a visitor to make sure you're eligible to be on campus with our kids and provide that level of support. I know there are organizations that support our schools through mentorship that you can connect with. If you go to our website and look at I want to say it's either under academics or parent and family, there's a couple of mentor groups that we work with that's listed on there, and you can reach out to them and join their organization, or you can just simply talk to your local schools and see what you can do to support them. First question was about, you got to repeat, I'm going to try and answer it. I'm going to tell you as a father, right? As a father, I don't depend on schools to teach my history. I don't. It's not enough days in the school year to even cover what we've gone through. It's not. So I have to compete against social media for my kids and whatnot. So guess what? As a dad, I blast my daughter's phone with texts and social media and forwarding her all these messages that I see that teaches our history, that goes over our journey as black people, right? So whatever resource I can find, whatever access I can have, I use those as a dad to go over that information and flood my daughter with all that information. So don't totally depend on the school. We can only do so much in a certain amount of time. Your kid's in school for 180 days, you add testing and all of that, it's probably about 130. And then they're in one period of a day for about 60 minutes. It's not going to happen where they're going to learn all of our history in schools. Utilize the resources that we have in front of us, our local churches. I'm learning about new resources in Broward County every day. I've learned about the African American Research Library. So there's tons of things that we can leverage to teach our own history besides depending on schools. So we need to make sure we utilize those too.
Thank you, Mr. James. With our last question or comment.
All right, my name is James Williams, raised here in Broward County, went to school here in Broward County. I'm 72 years old. I went through the rides. I went through the school system. I went through everything. But I hear you here tonight saying teachers this, politicians this, but as parents, grandparents, what we gonna do? The buck stopped with us. When I was in school, I had a beat up book, written in, Jack and Jill or whatever this thing was. I was very happy with that. I had no history. I didn't know nothing about my black history, but my mother, a maid, $5 a day, bought me Black history books, $1 a month until she paid for it. So why pass the buck? It's what we can do for our kids, not what the school board can do. It stopped at home. When I was coming up, the whole community raised them boys, especially me. I robbed the Wells Fargo and didn't go to jail not one time. You know why? I got a beating from everybody in the community at Judge Davis' office and made me a better man. I turned out to be one of the best chefs in Fort Lauderdale. See what I'm saying? All this negativity I don't understand. Please, let us be partnership. And DeSantis mean nothing. Just a man. I done seen worse than that in the South. I done seen black folks hung with the balls cut out. That, I'm still here. So nothing can stop us. Nothing. So stop listening to all this negativity and do something about it. Raise your own neighborhood. As president of the Rock Island Homeowners Association, I preach that. Now, I don't want to hear this about this, teachers this, and politicians that.
Amen.
Get up and help yourself.
Thank you, Mr. James. We're going to give 1 minute closing remarks with the panel.
Thank you for helping making me a man by putting me in your Dilla band when nobody else wanted.
We're going to start with 1 minute closing remarks, and thank you for your patience and your interest in our children. Attorney Weeks.
You know, thank you all for coming, and more importantly, thank you all for staying and you know, engaging with us in this important dialogue. You know, from the criminal justice standpoint, you know, I look at the school system and I see a lot of opportunity. Opportunity to progress, opportunity to try to make our community better. But I also see a tool that can be used. You know, I try to be a student of politics. I'm not a politician. I just happen to have a job that requires you to run in order to do it. You know, I love the law, but I'm a student of watching how things move and how they intersect together. We cannot put our heads in the sand when we know what is going on in Tallahassee. We know what the governor's agenda is. You know that he's looking very closely at Broward County. We had an incredible superintendent that got dragged through the mud. We had, you know, a system that was moving in the right direction with increasing in every single metric. Black graduation rates, you know, grades were going up, engagement in school, folks going to college, everything was going in the right direction. And all of that stopped because they have a plan to suppress this community. And this community is really, really important to their agenda, to suppress this community and to break it so we don't go out and vote, so we don't go out and engage, so we just say, you know what, I just can't do it anymore. I'm beat down, and I just walk away from it. We cannot do that. We have to recognize that our children are the most valuable resource. I got 2 boys in Broward County School, and the things I hear from them about what goes on in school is no different than the things that went on in school when I was in school. But they have the protection of a loving mother and a loving father that tries to guide them through this process. The school system should be guiding our children through this process. They're the segregates for us all day with our children. We shouldn't be trying to kick kids out of school and put them in the street so they're out there running and gunning and getting in all kind of problems. We need to try to keep them in school. Find out how we can access their brains and access their hearts and get them on the right direction. All of you can help us do that. It's not any one person by themselves. It's all of us working together collectively, supporting our school board, recognizing that there may be some issues in the school board that we have to come in unification and put pressure on them. We can't be afraid of fighting fire sometimes with fire, okay? Because they fighting fire. They burning everything up in Tallahassee. So we got to be able to have a little bit of gumption about ourselves and bring it back to them and let them know, you know, this line right here, this is a line that we're not going to allow you to cross. We're not going to allow you to cross that line when it comes to our children. So thank you for all for coming out.
Thank you, President Ellison.
Thank you, Doc. And so the NAACP has a legal team. We are looking for plaintiffs, teachers who want to teach AP African American Studies, and children who want to learn. Our general counsel is sitting in the back. Judge Holmes, stand up. Not only is she a retired judge, she serves as a general counsel for the Broward NAACP. See her before you go, but make it quick because she's going home. But we want to make sure you do that. Also, if you have not joined the Fight for Freedom, please make sure you do. We have a membership table outside. The only thing missing from the struggle is you. We're going to be there on the 29th. Anytime promise is discussed, because anytime that things are not being done in the best interest of the children, we're going to be there. We need you to be there with us. And we are asking you to join us as we continue. We have a large firm. We have 7 lawsuits in Tallahassee right now regarding to voting rights and everything you could think of that, you know, putting children out of school, Baker Action, all of those. But we need your help. So if you know someone who fits in those categories, please contact us before we leave. You know, we're on our website, NAACPFTOBroward.com. We need you in the fight. Thank you. Peace and power.
Thank you, Representative Campbell.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you for being here tonight. Similar to public defender Gordon Weeks, you know, I'm not a politician. I just love to support my community, and the way I got here was helping individuals, taking care of their mental well-being. And so for me, this is more than a job. It's ensuring that we are leaving a legacy behind for our kids and their kids. And so I'm glad to be continuing one of a seat that holds very strong meaning to me. And so when we're talking about what do we do in here, what do we do from here moving forward, we engage and we stay connected. I don't know how many times you see all these elected officials up here at one time, but it lets you know the strong support and the stronghold that we have at every level of the community as far as how we are fighting and what we are contending with and how much you are needed in this battle. And so I want to say, continue this dialogue, talk with your kids, make sure that you're talking with their professors, their principals, their school teachers. Stay engaged, join different organizations that are fighting for things that you find passionate about. Show your kids what that fight looks like so that they begin to feel empowered and continue to fight for themselves. Because at some point, you have to let go of the leash, and they have to know what that fight looks like. That's what we talk about when we talk about teaching me history. My young brother that was here talking about the resources, there's a young brother named Emmanuel who is doing Black Broward as far as educating folks about the history of Black Broward. There's other resources that I mentioned with the library system that they are hiring individuals that can continue to teach this history. And so stay connected. We are all connected to some type of source of information that can help you get you where you need to get to. And so we are resources. Please do not hesitate to reach out. I sat here to great notes of some ideas that I want to implement from my state representative position, and we're going to continue that conversation, and we're going to continue being here and having these dialogues so that we can give you the keys to success on how do you win in 2023 and 2024 and the years on after that.
Thank you, Representative Campbell. Dr. Hepburn.
Again, I want to thank you, everybody, for giving me this opportunity and let me have some time up here with these elected officials and people who are leading this community. So, you know, one of the main purposes for my job and everybody's job that works for the school board is to ensure that your kids have the best learning opportunities possible. Zero, that's it, right? To make sure your kids have the best learning opportunities possible. And like I said, to change your communities, to make sure we change the trajectory of their lives. And one of the things that I always urge people out in the community to do is to push us, to provide feedback to us, to to come in and advocate for their needs. Because if you don't do that, we don't know what you want, we don't know what you need, right? And then you have great people up here on the stage. I'm going to echo what Representative Campbell just talked about, utilizing the resources. If you don't know how to do it, you have people up here that can teach you how to do it. You have people up here that can help you mobilize as a group to advocate for what you need. It's hard to do it as an individual, but you make an impact when you actually do it as a group. And you have key leaders up here that can help you demonstrate that, can help you learn how to do that, to help you mobilize it, to push us to make sure we're doing what's right for your students, for your kids, to help change your community. So again, thank you for the opportunity. I'm blessed to be amongst some great individuals here, and utilize them. Utilize the human capital that's on this stage. It's powerful, and they can help create more change in a quicker way, so we can see how we can make an impact on your communities in real soon.
Thank you, Dr. Holness.
Thank you, Dr. Hepburn, and thank you so much, Senator Dr. Rosalind Osgood, for this wonderful event. We appreciate you so much. And I have to tell you, Dr. Osgood is a mentor to me. She's wonderful, and I am so happy to call her a friend as well. Thank you, Madam President Ellison. I appreciate talking to you all the time about the issues that face our children in Broward County Schools. Appreciate it. And I thank everyone on this panel as well. I would be remiss if I did not also mention Judge Holmes. Thank you so much, Judge Holmes. Always just a phone call away, and he's very receptive. I'd like to recognize, too, in those individuals in the audience, our elected officials. I see Brother Spence over there from Lauderdale Lakes, and also Brother Du Bois, great past representatives, and so on. I'd also be remiss if I did not mention our district staff who are here. Please stand up, our district staff, because we appreciate you as well. Andre. We appreciate you so much. These are the people who work in the background and to help us and to make sure the district is running properly. I'd also like to recognize our diversity chair, Miss Narni Grant over there. Thank you so much for the job that you're doing. Now, I just want to say that it is really encouraging to see the community come out to listen to us. This is really about educating our children and ensuring that our children are equipped to be productive members of the society. That's really what we're here to do. And so when we have challenges such as the African American history curriculum, we do have to work through those challenges, and we do have to meet those challenges with bravery. We cannot be hesitant in addressing these issues. But at the same time, education begins at home, right? So if there are certain topics within the school district that we're bounded by law to carry out, then I would encourage our parents as well, which I believe the rest of the panel share, is that education begins at home. Children spend more time at home than they do in schools. And there are great resources, for example, with African American history, that you can access, that you can help educate your children. I do encourage everyone to please attend the board meetings. I want to recognize a group that I see all the time at the board meetings, Truth Matters. They're all there in the back. Thank you so much. Please attend our board meetings. That's where you learn so much. And issues that you have, please don't keep those issues to yourselves. Don't be frustrated. Send your concerns in. I have my cards here. There are cards on the back table as well. Don't hold those issues back, because we want to know. If we don't know, we can't help to resolve those concerns. So I just want to say the goal for us is to improve our grades, our school grades, to improve our school working conditions, to ensure that we are properly compensating teachers and that we have great teacher staff morale at our schools, and to continue to engage the community as we're doing here. So we do appreciate you. You elect us. We are your voice. So please always tell us what you're seeing, tell us how you feel, because we represent you and we represent your voice. So let us know, and we will then be able to advocate much better for you. So thank you all for being here tonight. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
And thank you to this esteemed panel. Thank you for all of you coming out tonight. You guys know me. I love this community. I believe in this community. We will continue to have these forums. Every Tuesday night at 7, I do a virtual Tuesday talk about some topic. If it's something you want to talk about, reach out to my office. And I'm doing it virtually because there's a lot of us that don't get out at night, and with the cost of gas, you know, some people prefer things done online, but we're trying to provide different ways that we can communicate. And Pastor Green, I take that charge. I will make sure that we circle back to meet with clergy, that we can come up with some kind of plan, that we can have some type of state district education council from the state level, that we work with Representative Campbell and others to have that as a part of what we're doing going forward as we plan. Committee week starts in October in Tallahassee. We start going to committee week. That's when a lot of decisions are made and legislation is filed. When you come during the legislative session in January, a lot of times that's too late. So we want to make sure that you are tapped in virtually. You can go to sunshineflorida.gov. It's ways for you to stay connected to Tallahassee and stay connected to us. And feel free to reach out and contact us at any time. I want to ask those of you that are not Black people to stand. And I want to thank you for being here tonight. And it's important that we do that. And then I want to ask Nigel and Ruby, my staff, to stand. Julie is under the weather, but can you stand, Nigel and Ruby? Thank you. They didn't give me the Black memo tonight, but thank you for all you did. Thank you to Delvis. Delvis has worked really hard behind the scenes, the video person. And Pastor Tillman, I know I'm going to have to buy you breakfast or lunch about extending this stay, but I'll borrow some money from Representative Campbell or President Ellison and make that happen. God bless you tonight. Thank all of you for coming out. Until we meet again, I'm not going to say goodbye because this is just the beginning. We're going to keep having these meetings and conversations. This is our community, and these are our children, and we're going to care about them and come together to make some changes. God bless you, and God bless America.